everyone, and welcome back to another segment of Bio News. Today, you will be hearing from your four hosts, Brianna, Melissa, Karen, and myself, Daniel. Now, today, I'd like to talk to you about cell signaling that occurs in G1. Now, many of you might know that G1 is a phase in the cell cycle where the cell initially starts to grow. And the only way that a cell could grow is if it absorbs different molecules that it needs to allow it to grow. This is where cell signaling comes in. Cell signaling is when a cell releases molecules, or in this case, we call them ligands, that are received by other cells and create a response or a reaction. Now, there's a few different ways that it can happen. It can happen by direct contact, which means that two cells are close enough together that they have almost they're connected, and the molecules can transfer through those connections or through the openings in those connections. Or in other cases, they can transfer from quite a distance. If it was short distance, it means it was probably in the same extracellular space as the other cell, and the cell that received it had the right receptors for it, so it had a reaction to it. If it was long distance, chances are it was in the endocrine, through endocrine communications, which means that it probably traveled through the bloodstream until it found a receptor that it matched with. Those or the ligands were able to bind to the receptors and create a reaction. So furthermore, the cell signaling events that occurs in G1 are going to be most likely endocrine communications or parasyn communications, aka long distance or distance communication rather than direct contact. Also, I want to talk to you about cellular respiration. That is just the process in which cells get their energy from a form of ATP. There are two types of cellular respirations, aerobic and anaerobic. Aerobic respiration is more efficient, and it can be utilized in the presence of oxygen, whereas anaerobic respiration does not require oxygen.
Hello, my name is Melissa, and today I'm going to be discussing to you why NADH causes the production of more ATP than FADH2 during oxidative phosphorylation. This happens because NADH produces 3 ATP during the electron transport chain, also known as the ETC, with oxidative phosphorylation because NADH gives up its electrons to complex 1, which is at a higher energy level than other complexes. When complex 1 transfers to electrons to complex 3, energy is given off to pump protons across the membrane, creating a gradient. The electron moves again to complex 4 and again pumps more electrons across the membrane. Because NADH started with complex 1, it had more chances to pump more protons across the gradient, which powers the ATP synthesis and gives us 3 ATP per molecule of NADH. FADH2 produces 2 ATPs during the ETC because it gives up its electrons to complex 2 by bypassing complex 1. By bypassing complex 1, we miss the chance to pump protons across the membrane, so less protons have been pumped by the time we get to complex 4. Protons still have been pumped enough to fuel 2 ATPs created by the ATP synthesis. We just discussed why NADH causes the production of more ATP than FADH2 during oxidative phosphorylation. Thank you.
Hi, hello everyone. My name is Brianna Willis, and I will be explaining interphase and mitosis and what are happening during this process of cell cycling. So, number one, what is interphase? The stage of cell cycle that is between cell division. It is the longest stage of the cell phase, and it can be divided into three phases. Number one, G1 phase. Number two, S phase. Number three, G2 phase. If the cell divides, it enters the S phase, which is where the DNA is replicated. In the G2 phase, more growth occurs. So, to compare or give a comparison, I am sitting in my car, and for G1 phase, I would say that it starts out as the brake. So as the brake is sitting at the bottom, as you guys know, if you have, I mean, everyone been in the car before, so you will know that the brake is at the bottom. So number two, the S phase. The S phase is the steering wheel. It occurs connected to the G2 phase. The G2 phase is where all the action occurs, because in order to get the car moving, you have to put it either in reverse, neutral, or drive. So, further along we move. What is mitosis? I'm sorry. It is the process to divide the nucleus to create two identical daughter cells. The four stages of mitosis would be the prophase stage, is where the nucleus breaks down from the envelope, which makes the nucleus disappears. So as an example, I would give this as the first stage as a prophase gas. It is one thing that is used and it disappears, evaporates when you're moving in the car, you're running heat and going to different locations. Number two, the metaphase. It occurs when the chromosomes line up across the center of the cell. Number three, interphase. This stage occurs when the chromosomes move toward opposite ends of the nuclear spindle. And last but not least, the final stage of them all is telophase of mitosis. During the nuclear membrane, it forms around each set of new chromosomes, and cytokinesis, occurs during this stage. And that will be all.
Hello, and welcome to your segment of Bio News. My name is Karen Gonzalez, and today we'll be talking about electron transport. The electrons transfer their energy to member proteins, also known as the proton pump, and actively pump protons, which are hydrogen ions, across the inner membrane. You can see this in the image, how they're being pumped across the inner membrane. Inside the inner membrane of the mitochondria, there's a chain of electron carriers. The chain is called the electron transport chain. Electrons from the oxidative reactions in earlier stages pass along the chain. NADH donates 2 electrons to the first carrier in the chain. These 2 electrons pass along the chain and release energy from one carrier to the next. Enough energy is released to produce ATP via ATP synapses, which is this right here in the blue. ATP synapse is an enzyme that is also found in the inner mitochondrial membrane. FADH2 also donates electrons, but at a later stage than NADH. Enough energy is released along the chain by electrons from FADH2. Oxygen is important at the end of the electron transport chain. The electrons are donated to oxygen. This occurs in the matrix at the surface of the inner membrane. At the same time, the oxygen binds with hydrogen ions and forms water. If there is no oxygen, then electrons can no longer pass through the electron transport chain, and NADH plus H can no longer be converted into NAD. Eventually, the NAD in the mitochondria runs out, and therefore link reactions and Krebs cycles can no longer take in this process. Oxygen is the final electron acceptor
and produces water. This is all we have today for today's segment. Thank you.